Part 1. The Lonely Beacon. The wind always howled on Windmere Island, but Elias Rowe had grown used to it. The lighthouse had been his home for almost 30 years. Every evening at 6 o'clock sharp, he climbed the spiral staircase to light the beacon that warned passing ships of the jagged reefs below. The island was no longer inhabited, just Elias, the seabirds, and the ever-hungry tide. But Elias wasn't bothered. He had chosen isolation after Mira died. The world was quieter this way. But one stormy night, just after lighting the beacon, Elias heard something he hadn't heard in years, a knock on the lighthouse door. Standing there, drenched and shivering, was a young girl with wild copper hair and eyes like lightning. "I'm Lyra. I think I'm supposed to find you." Part 2. The Map and the Ghost. Elias was stunned. Visitors never came here. Not since the ferry stopped running years ago. He gave Lyra dry clothes and hot soup and reluctantly let her stay the night. That evening, as thunder cracked and waves battered the shore, Lyra revealed an old, sea-worn map she'd found in the attic of the orphanage. It showed Windmere Island and a place marked the heart of the tide. "There's something out there," she whispered, "calling me." Elias scoffed. He'd heard that legend before, a tale of a hidden cavern said to hold a light stronger than any lighthouse, capable of revealing truths and healing wounds. He once believed in it. So had Mira. That night, Elias dreamed of Mira standing at the edge of the sea, whispering, "The light is fading, Elias. It needs you. And her." Part 3. Captain Morn's Warning. The next morning, Elias took Lyra to meet the only other person who might know more, the reclusive Captain Silas Morn. Silas had once captained the Dawnbringer, a ship that vanished during a night like this 20 years ago. When he saw Lyra, his face went pale. "I saw her. On the night the sea swallowed my ship. A girl just like her, eyes like a storm." He showed them a water-stained journal filled with scribbled entries. One read, "The whispering tide speaks through her. She is the last lightkeeper." Lyra was shaken. She had no parents, no known origin, just the memory of being found near the coast as a baby. Silas warned them both. "If you seek the heart of the tide, be ready to give something in return." Part 4. Descent into the Tide. Elias, torn between skepticism and the haunting dream of Mira, agreed to take Lyra to the marked location on the map. They waited for the lowest tide when the hidden path between cliffs appeared like the spine of a sea serpent. Lantern in hand, they followed it, wind howling behind them. As they reached a sea cave, the tide began to rise too fast. It whispered as it climbed the rocks, voices from the deep. Inside, glowing stones lit the cave in a soft blue hue. At its center stood a crystal pedestal with a flame, flickering low, almost out. Lyra stepped forward. The whispers grew louder, forming words. "You must give your past to light the future." She turned to Elias. "I don't remember who I am. What if this is the only way to know?" Elias, heart pounding, suddenly heard Mira's voice again, clearer this time. "Let her choose, as you chose once when you stayed behind." He realized then, Mira had once tried to reach the heart of the tide. She had failed and been taken. Part 5. Sacrifice and Light. Lyra placed her hand on the flame. The cave shook. Water surged in but didn't drown them. Instead, the tide receded like it had been tamed. Memories surged into Lyra's mind, a shipwreck, a woman with red hair clutching her as a baby, a lighthouse in the distance. Elias fell to his knees. Mira had saved the girl and sent her here. The sea had not taken Mira. It had turned her into a guardian of the light. The flame blazed high. The beacon on the lighthouse suddenly glowed brighter than ever before, visible for miles, even in storm. Lyra collapsed. Elias caught her, tears on his cheeks. "You are the light now," he whispered. Epilogue. The New Keeper. Years passed. Ships once again passed safely through Windmere waters. The legend of the heart of the tide became real to some, myth to others. Elias grew old, peaceful at last, often seen speaking to the sea as if to someone unseen. Lyra remained at the lighthouse, now the keeper of its flame, her eyes always on the horizon. And on stormy nights, if you stand on the cliffs of Windmere, you might hear the whispers of the tide, calling out to the brave, the lost, and the ones meant to keep the light alive.